Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome one and all to the Defiant Takes Football Show. I'm Max Dean. You can find me on Twitter at @TheMaxDean, and I am back once again to pick every Week 5 game against the spread for the NFL. Coming Sunday with Brison Owens at BrisonOwens16 and Kyle Nishida at Kyle_Nishida. Whew, guys, it is Thursday. It is Saturday again. And that means it's time to look at the upcoming week. We missed last week, unfortunately. Just had some things come up, but we're back at it. Brison, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well so far, man. You know, got to watch the Thursday night game. It was not how I anticipated it going, but excited for full slate of college football, full slate of NFL football. Ready to get it going.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't usually get to sit through the Saturday games, but Sunday I am looking forward to, if not only because my team might actually win for once, but maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself yet. Kyle, how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, Thursday was kind of weird because I actually ended up on the right side. I didn't anticipate a win like that, but that was very shocking. So hopefully we can roll that into a very good weekend of some college football today, and then obviously some NFL football tomorrow.
Yeah, last week was interesting, and it's kind of carried over into this week as well. There's a lot of things that we didn't anticipate, but this is the mark, right? We've gotten through 4 weeks of the NFL season. We've kind of gotten most of that. Who are they? When are they going to show us their real selves? That's mostly out of the way. And so, not that it's an absolute truth, but for the most part, from week 5 or so onward, we get to know who these teams are because they get to know who they are themselves. They start to figure out what they do well, what they don't do well. They've got tape on other teams. And so consistency tends to be a little bit higher from here on out. So I'm curious to see what these teams show themselves as. So we're going to go through, pick every single game against the spread. We are just going to use the ESPN spread. I know that if you are new to watching or listening to us, we sometimes the spread is slightly different than what you'll get from the most updated betting line, but ESPN's a little slower to do that because they kind of sit with I don't know if they sit with an opening spread, but they don't update it as quickly. So the first game that we are going to take a look at is the Jaguars at Bills, although it is actually in London. So Bills get a home game out of the country. I would not want to give up a home game to play outside of the country, man. It sucks. But the Jaguars are plus 5.5 underdogs. They are missing Parker Washington, wide receiver, Dwayne Smoot, outside linebacker, who's a useful rusher for them. Devin Lloyd, their linebacker, and Christian Braswell. They also have Zay Jones, questionable, Jamal Agnew, questionable, Foley Fatukasi, questionable, Shaq Lawson, and safety Antonio Johnson as questionable. While the Bills are missing Greg Russo and Tre'Davious White. Trey White obviously going on IR with the torn Achilles, and they are questionable with Von Miller possibly making his return, and their other starting corner, Christian Benford, questionable. So, they're missing some important players too. So as good as the Bills have looked, this is a different look for them. Brison, what's your take on the Bills and Jags overseas?
I'm going to take the Bills to cover this one. The Jags do provide possibly a unique advantage that we've never seen before in the fact that they got to stay overseas. They didn't have to travel because they played last week in London. So it's very interesting to see how that kind of plays into this factor here. But the Bills look just so dominant on both sides of the ball. I mean, you look at what they did to the Dolphins last week, just the ability to pressure Tua on seemingly every play. This was a Dolphins team that put up 70 points a week ago. 70 points. And they held them to 20, and the offense never really seemed comfortable, while the Bills' offense just they seem to click on every single play. Josh Allen's playing at an extremely high level. They can run the football when they really commit to it. James Cook has looked much better this year so far than they did last year. And the one thing that's really given the Bills trouble with Josh Allen over the years is a defense that can really provide pressure without having to blitz Josh Allen. And then a secondary that can play really good press man coverage. And I just don't think the Jaguars defense is built for that. I don't think they're going to pressure Josh Allen as often as they want to. And I think that it's going to be a pretty the Bills offense is going to seem pretty comfortable in this game. And that defense, I think they're going to make life very difficult on Trevor Lawrence all day. So I think I'm going to take the Bills to cover. It's a higher spread than I would have imagined coming into the season because I had both these teams, playing really well so far at this point of the year. But even with a decent spread, I'm going to take the Bills.
Yeah, with this game, the spread's kind of the way it is because I just think everybody's kind of waiting on seeing on how this Jacksonville offense is going to actually put up points. Like it's looked okay in parts during games, but it hasn't been great. With that in mind, I'll take the Bills -5.5. I think 2 weeks ago I told you guys if you think the Bills are going to win and you get anything below a touchdown, take it because they win by margin. I think now it's out of their 41 wins since the start of the 2020 season, they've won 33 of them by more than 7 points, essentially. It may be 6. So again, I think the Bills are going to win this. Obviously, the whole traveling to London could pose a problem or an advantage for the Jags since they didn't have to go and make that travel as well. But I haven't seen really much of anything with the Jaguars that suggests that they're going to be able to put up the scoring output that the Buffalo Bills will likely. And then at the same time, Buffalo's defense is going to should be able to keep Jacksonville in check. Two things I'd note just in terms of prop bets. Yeah, I'd go with James Conner's over for rushing yards. I haven't really seen anything from the Jaguars that suggests they're going to be able to stop Buffalo or even any team consistently on the ground. And then at the same time, I'd also look on the flip side. Evan Ingram's getting a lot of look from Trevor Lawrence every game right now. I think he's at least 5 catches a game in every game so far this season. So I definitely look at over receiving yards and just taking a quick peek at receptions for Evan Ingram. 4.5, but it's juice. So I think taking the yards with Evan Ingram's fine because he's gonna even if it's 7 catches, he's gonna end up over 43.5 yards. So those would be my 2 prop bets with this game as well.
Yeah, I like James Cook. I like anyone on the Bills offense, honestly, in this game because the Jags have not been great defensively. And they're missing some important players, but I actually, I'm going to lean towards picking the Jags here just because there's a lot of kind of caveats to this game in that, we talked about them being able to stay over there. They're pretty used to playing in London, and not that alone it would make the difference, but the Bills are missing some important guys. Greg Rousseau is their best edge player right now. Ed Oliver is playing well on the interior, but you lose Rousseau. You might not have Von Miller. Even if you do, you're not really sure what you're looking at. To be out Trey White and possibly Christian Benford as well, that's a big difference. And so we're looking at, a Jacksonville offense that might be a little bit more explosive, a little bit closer to what we saw out of them week 1. Might see a little bit more of that Calvin Ridley connection. Now, they do have other corners. They have Kyrie Elam, former first-round pick. They've got I forget. He started a bunch of games for them, and I forget what his name is. I have to look real quick. To step in on the other side, and if Christian Benford does play, I'll feel a little bit better about picking the Bills here. But there's like just enough here that makes me think that the Jags might be able to cover 5.5. I mean, if the offense is going for the Bills, maybe that's just a bad decision. But I think if If this was at home in Buffalo, it would be easy. But it's going to be a little bit different in this situation. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Jags at +5.5. All right. Next up, we have the Houston Texans as 1.5-point underdogs at the Atlanta Falcons. So that's interesting. I guess we're getting a little bit of a home advantage for the Falcons here because the Texans have been showing some real life. Let's take a look at the injury report for them here. They are going to be missing Josh Jones and Christian Harris, with John Mechie, Laramie Tunsil, Malik Collins, Jake Hansen, who's a linebacker, and corner Shaq Griffin, all questionable, while the Falcons have nobody on the injury report at all. So, the Falcons have started a little slower than a lot of people anticipated. Texans have started faster than a lot of people anticipated. And now we kind of get to see, is this streak for the rookie CJ Stroud going to hold? Is he going to have one of the best rookie seasons of all time, or is he going to come back down to earth a little bit? Bryson, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this game is really fascinating. It's my favorite game of the day, personally. It's my favorite bet because I love picking the Houston Texans as the underdog in this game. I think at right this moment, they're playing better than the Falcons are on both sides of the ball. They have the better quarterback in this matchup. CJ Stroud, I think, is far better as of right now than Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder just has no juice to him. You heard, if you watched the game last week, they were saying it the entire game. He's just not pushing the ball downfield. Every throw of his is 5 yards or fewer, and that's just not going to get the job done in the NFL. With how these NFL defenders are, they're faster than they are in college. They're better at tackling. So, while Desmond Ridder might have gotten away with that in college, being able to just dump it off and let his playmakers go and run wild, it's not going to work in the NFL. And you're seeing Bijan Robinson can only do so much for the Falcons. He's kind of their only real playmaker right now. And with the way the Texans are playing, Tank Dell, Nico Collins are legit threats for this Texans passing game. CJ Stroud's playing excellent football. The defense is actually playing way better than I had them playing coming into the season. They aren't the most talented group, but they're all playing really, really well behind their rookie head coach, D'Amico Ryans. CJ Stroud's playing at a high level. I don't understand personally why the Texans are underdogs in this one. The one thing that they will need to get going is Dameon Pierce. This run game for the Texans has to get something going for them. Otherwise, CJ Stroud's he's going to run out of gas by the end of the season because they're just going to ask too much of him this as a rookie. So that's the one concern I have for this team. But other than that, I think everything else points towards the Texans being able to cover the spread, and I have them winning the football game outright.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one because you have two teams kind of going in opposite directions because the Texans 0-2 start. Now they're up 2 games on 2-game win streak. Falcons kind of snuck their way into 2-0 and now are kind of falling back into this weird state where their quarterback play is not great and they're just relying on singly one running back. So I'm having a tough time picking it. I'll go with the Texans plus 1.5. I wouldn't necessarily love picking this game just because I still kind of think these are two relatively unknown commodities with two young quarterbacks. So I think there's a lot to gamble on there. I am kind of thinking that almost the under should be the play here for the sense of you shouldn't trust anything the Falcons are doing offensively. And then on the flip side, the Falcons the Falcons defense has actually been playing really, really good this season. It's just they can't get anything going offensively. So I'm actually thinking that even though 41.5 is kind of low, I'm actually thinking that would be the play if you were looking at doing anything with this game. As far as anything else with this game, this game is just really hard for me to read, so I don't really have much to go about it. Since I have to make a pick, I'd probably go with the Texans plus 1.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Texans here as well. I'm curious to see who they really are throughout the entirety of the season, but the offense is heating up. And at this point, offense is what I'm going to trust if I'm looking at two teams that don't either feature an elite defense. The Texans defense is interesting for sure. They have some guys who are emerging, guys who have real potential, and they've been playing far better this year under the new coaching staff than they were last year, even though it's mostly quite a few of the same guys, a few different guys up front. But just this offense is something that I want to trust and I want to get comfortable with, and I'm just not sure if the Steelers couldn't throw something at CJ Stroud that he couldn't handle. I don't really anticipate the Falcons doing it because they don't really have a ton of pass rush juice themselves either. So I'm going to take the Texans here at +1.5. enter my cat. You can probably hear her. She's quite loud. All right. The next game we have on the docket is the Panthers and the Lions. So two teams in very different places right now. The Lions they've got all the juice. They've got all the good vibes. The Panthers, everyone just looks kind of sad down there. Everyone sounds kind of sad down there. They are +8.5 on the road. And let's see, who are they looking at missing? Panthers are out their guard, Austin Corbett, safety, Xavier Woods, and backup tight end, Stephen Sullivan, and Dante Jackson is questionable. Lions are missing fullback Jason Kabinda and D-back Brian Branch, with Amon-Ra St. Brown and tight end James Mitchell doubtful. They have a whole host of guys questionable, including Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Reynolds, Jamison Williams, Taylor Decker, Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Julian Okwara, Emmanuel Mosley, and Kirby Joseph. So despite all of the juice, they are pretty banged up right now. So 8.5 might be kind of a lot. They still have their most important players defensively. They've got Jared Goff on offensive side of the ball. They've got Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive side of the ball. But I just, not that I don't think that they could win, but 8.5 is a lot when you're missing that many important starting players or have that many guys questionable. What do you think about this game, Bryson?
Yeah, I'm not as confident in this game as I was before I read that injury report. That injury report does kind of scare me for the Lions. Just in terms of receivers, they could be out in general. That scares me a lot. I mean, Jared Goff could be missing his top 3 receivers with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, and then if Jamison Williams is ready to go off his suspension, that's a boost for them. But he hasn't played in so long that who knows how good he'll be right away. The one thing that gives me confidence in picking the Lions is the fact that in 3 of the 4 games so far this season for the Panthers, they've lost by at least 10 points or by at least 8 points. So, I mean, it helps me a little bit there knowing that when the Panthers lose this season so far, it's by more than a touchdown. And the Lions, they're playing really well on both sides of the ball. Aiden Hutchinson alone could just wreck that Panthers offense. He's going to get to Bryce Young a few times in this game, I feel like. And then the one thing you can really do well against this Panthers defense is they don't defend the run very well. They're 27th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed. So I think you're going to see a heavy dosage of Montgomery, and if Jahmyr Gibbs can play, Gibbs is going to finally get a decent number of touches in this game, which is going to make life a lot easier on Jared Goff with all those receivers out. So I'm not as confident heading into this one because of that injury report, but I'm going to take the Lions to cover here just because I think momentum is just, you mentioned it earlier, Max, the Panthers are down so bad. There's nothing going for them right now. The offense has no life to them. It's a lot like the Falcons offense I mentioned a second ago. Bryce Young is just not pushing the ball downfield. It's a lot of short stuff, hoping that they can get things going after the catch, and just it's not really working out that well. My favorite player to bet on in this game too is Sam Laporta. I'm taking his over on yards, receptions, and I'm having him scoring a touchdown. Because if there's all these receivers out for this game, he's going to feed Laporta almost every chance he gets in this one. So I'm going to take the Lions to cover, and I would slam every Laporta prop you can.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Laporta. I'm looking at DraftKings. They've only put up his receiving yards prop. They're holding off on any of the receptions props, which I'm like, well, that's that's probably dependent on the injury report for the Lions
Yeah.
as I'm looking at that right now. So, yeah, the funny thing is, I'm actually, as much as I don't feel great about doing this, I'm on the Panthers plus 8.5, and so this was kind of one of the reasons. This kind of falls into a similar line of thinking when when I ended up making the Bears pick on Thursday. Teams that are 0-4 just in and facing teams that aren't unbeaten. They're 63.5 against the spread, 63% against the spread. So it it's just kind of one of those wounded animal things. They'll just start playing for pride, even though their season's kind of going nowhere. Um, I just think the fact that all those Lions injuries do just bother me, and the fact that Goff may be down his three best receivers does not make me feel great about trying to pick the Lions as basically a full one possession victory. So I'll take the Panthers plus 8.5. Again, not a whole lot of things I can point to that would suggest it. It's more of a numbers play, especially when I'm not really comfortable with the overall large number. I will put out the prop bet though. I think anything Adam Thielen is a go as well. That is Bryce Young's number one target. And so whether it's those short passes, Adam Thielen's going to pick up receptions. He's going to rack up enough yards that I think he could cover 52.5. And then also one other prop that I've been hitting all year when it comes to Bryce Young under his longest completion. Right now it's 33.5. He hasn't completed anything longer than 22 yards this season in 3 games. So I was like that could be something you could just throw into a parlay as well. I'd have no issue if anybody took that and just said, yeah, I'll take the bait on that. So Panthers plus 8.5, and then those prop bets for me from that game.
I'm going to take the Panthers here too, and I would be blown away if they win this game, just like everybody else. But with 8.5 points, and I know that the stadium is going to be loud. It's going to be raucous. I know it's not going to be an easy place to play, but you know, I feel bad for Bryce Young. I really do, because when he was drafted there, I thought that in so many ways it was a great fit. I thought Frank Reich was a good fit for him, but trading away DJ Moore as part of that package, I I felt like that was a mistake. I really felt like it was just a mistake, because you cannot replace a player like that for a young quarterback who needs somebody to be their outlet. And that's why it was so important for the Bears to go out and get him, because they haven't had anybody like that. But if I was the Panthers, I would have just held out. I really would have, because you put yourself in a situation where you don't have anybody who is dangerous at all. And Bryce Young loves throwing the ball down the field. So the fact that his longest completion is 22 yards is not by his choice. You know what I mean? It's just he doesn't have anybody who can get it done. So that's a shame, and it's tough to see them with this kind of start. But at the same time, I'm not comfortable with 8.5 points, not knowing who's going to be in and who's going to be banged up. I mean, if they are out Taylor Decker and Vaitai, that's 2 of their starting offensive line, right? And the Panthers do have a good defensive line. You know, they've got Brian Burns, they've got Derek Brown, they've got some good players who can stop the run. So, you know, it might not be that easy if you don't have the threat of the Amon-Ra St. Brown or whoever else. And Jameson Williams is an absolute unknown at this point. So, you know, this again, it could come back to bite me. It's a little bit of a gut feeling thing, but I'm going to take the Panthers to cover at least 8.5. So even if it's just 1 touchdown, they win by, I'll be all right. Okay. So next up, we have a battle between the AFC South. I'm really going to have to talk myself through this game, because I'm not sure how I feel about it. The Titans are 1.5 point underdogs at the Colts. Colts are going to be missing. Colts are missing Bernard Ryman, so that's their starting left tackle. They're missing Shaq Leonard, which is pretty much almost a given at this point. And then one of their better edge rushers, Kwity Paye, out with a concussion. The running back Jonathan Taylor is questionable. We've heard a fair amount about how he might make his way back this week, but we'll see. Titans are missing Traylon Burks, tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere, and then defensive lineman Tyre Tart and linebacker Luke Gifford. So, these are two, I think both 2-2 right now. These 2-2 teams. I don't know what to make of them. I think that at this point the Titans have shown that they can kind of hang, which is what we thought. I think everybody thought that they were going to go around 7-8 or 7-8-9 or whatever the case might be, and their season was just going to be a little bit, disappointing because they just don't have the players necessary to go on a big run. But they've had some good games and they've played hard and their defense is always good. And then the Colts have been really up and down, and it's more been flashes than anything. So the question is, which of these teams can, I don't know, take it home, I guess, because at this point it's basically a pick 'em.
Yeah, this game fascinates me because when you look at the numbers, just in terms of like yardage on both offense and defense for these two teams, they're so similar in so many areas. And then even when you go into the more deeper, like advanced stats, pressure rate percentages, they're practically even. It's 20. See, I just had it 22.4% for the Colts versus 20% for the Titans, which is both pretty below league average. Neither team pressures the quarterback a ton, but they both do end up getting to the quarterback a decent amount. The Titans are tied for the fourth most sacks, and the Colts are tied for the third most sacks. Like, if they get to the quarterback, they just don't pressure them very consistently, which I find very interesting. Neither team forces turnovers very often on defense. The one big advantage that the Titans have over the Colts, especially on the defense side of the ball, is you can't really run on this Titans defense. They are fourth in the NFL in yards allowed on defense against the run with 70 yards, which if they can really slow down that Colts run game, it makes it and put the pressure on Anthony Richardson to make plays late in the game. I think that's going to set them up for success. And you saw Derrick Henry finally get going this last week. I think you can see similar success this week with the Colts, who are 22nd in the NFL in rushing yards. I think the Titans are going to really lean on Derrick Henry as they usually do. I'm going to take the Titans to win this because I'm going to take the more experienced coach and the better overall defense against a rookie coach and rookie quarterback. I don't love it. My biggest concern is the passing game for the Titans with Ryan Tannehill. I don't trust it at this point in the year, but Tannehill played well against the Bengals a week ago. They're running the ball well right now, so they're a little bit healthier than the Colts are right now. Getting Jonathan Taylor back, even if he's playing this week, who knows what kind of percentage he is, who knows what kind of snap count he's on. So I don't know how big a factor Taylor will be in this game. And if the big unknown in this is how many big plays if the ball is in Anthony Richardson's hands, he can make so many just massive plays. And if he can do that against this Titans team, he might just, the explosive plays are going to be more on the Colts side than the Titans side in this game. So that's going to be a huge factor. But I think that the Titans are going to play better ball control. I think they're going to control the clock a little bit better, and they're going to play slightly better defense than the Colts in this one. So I'm going to take the Titans to cover. I don't love it, but I feel more confident taking Vrabel and this defense in this matchup.
Yeah, you are right to be wondering what on earth is going to happen. Again, I said this 2 weeks ago. Welcome to the AFC South, where nothing makes any sense. The fact that all four of the teams are 2-2 so far this season is fascinating. I think the one interesting thing about the line is the Pick'em ESPN Pick'em has the Colts as a -1.5 favorite. You look on almost all the betting sites right now, it's flipped all the other way and past the number where the Titans are now 2.5 point favorites. Like you look at DraftKings. So it seems like everybody thinks that this was the wrong line to begin with, and they have been betting accordingly. With that in mind, I kind of want to take the Colts in this situation, mainly because of what their defense has been doing so far this season. I don't really trust anything the Titans are doing offensively. I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors and just giving it to Derrick Henry and hoping that he's going to do well. I do think Derrick Henry will do well this game because he has done well against the Colts in the past like 5 years that he's had to play them. So it wouldn't shock me if I think his rushing total number is like at 77.5. Wouldn't shock me if he had a 100-yard game. But with that said, they have to be able to throw. They're gonna have to be able to throw the ball eventually. I just don't know. I have not seen anything from Tannehill this season that makes me suggest that that's going to be the case. And regardless if the Titan, I do believe that the Titans have a really good defense. I just think that the Colts have been able to piece together game plans that keep them in the game for the most part, and then they find a way to out execute teams. Granted, Vrabel's a very good coach and very good situationally. I just think the Colts have a little bit more. I think the Colts have a little bit. I'm trying to think of the right word. I just think I like their offense more in this spot against the Titans team that kind of I think got lucky against or I shouldn't say got lucky. They didn't have to play very well against the Bengals team because the Bengals are an absolute train wreck right now. So I think everybody's just kind of gassing out the Titans, still thinking the Bengals are good, where I don't really think the Bengals are good. So I think I would take the Colts -1.5 here just because of what I've seen so far.
I'm going to take the Titans at +1.5 just because I think that the biggest issue that we've seen so far with the offense for the Colts is that it's very inconsistent. It's very, very streaky, and they get big plays, they get big runs, and we're still seeing. It's not inaccuracy; it's just inconsistent accuracy, if that makes sense, right? I think it's important to talk about those being two different things. Where if the ball is right where it needs to be a lot of the time, then accuracy is not the problem. It's the consistency if it's not. And so we're seeing inconsistent accuracy. And I think that's just some inconsistent mechanics and just feeling the pressure. And I do think that the Titans are the type of defense that are going to be able to be they're going to be able to prey upon that a little bit. I think they're going to do a pretty good job of maintaining their run gaps. So I don't think that they're going to give up a ton of big runs. You'll see one here or there, but I think some of that stuff that gets the juice flowing for the Colts offense, it might be a little bit harder to come by in this game because I just trust the Vrabel-led defense. So I'm going to take the Titans here, and I think we're going to need a little bit more time to see Richardson really settle in, and it's going to be a little while before he gets to his full potential. So I'm going to take Titans. All right. Next up, we have the New York Giants. Ooh, we only have half of a banner there. The New York Giants they're too fast to even be. That was a dumb joke. All right. The New York Giants are +9.5 underdogs at the Miami Dolphins. Let me fix that here. I don't know if 9.5 is enough for this, but I'm just going to let you just jump in here, Bryson.
Yeah, I mean, it's 9.5 on ESPN. On sportsbooks like DraftKings, it's 12.5, which seems a little bit more accurate in my opinion. I don't think there's any reason to take the Giants in this game. They're a mess right now. Daniel Jones is playing some of his worst football in his career now, which is insane to see because of how well Brian Dable had him playing last year. It's like a complete flip of the switch. Like Daniel Jones looks really rough. The offensive line looks horrendous. Like what did happen to Daniel Jones last week? 11 sacks? He got sacked 11 times. That's insane. And it's only going to get worse because the injuries the Giants have on the offensive line. They're going to be missing Andrew Thomas is out. John Michael Schmitz is out. So that's two of their starters. Shane Lemieux, who I don't know, just is Shane Lemieux a starting guard for this team, or is he just one of those backups for them?
I think he's a starter.
Yeah, so that's three starters on an already really bad offensive line out in this game. They have nothing going for them right offensively, and I know the Dolphins kind of got steamrolled by the Bills last week. It was kind of a shock how bad they played last week. I don't think they're going to play that badly again. They're going to get it right this week. I don't think there's going to be any way the Giants have of stopping this Miami offense. It's rolling. They had a bad week last week. They're going to get it fixed this week. I don't love Giant spreads. I don't love having to need a team to win by 10 points for this to work, but I see no confidence in taking the Giants in this game. So I'm going to take the Dolphins to cover in this one. And if you can find turnover props on Daniel Jones, I would take every turnover prop. I think on DraftKings, it's minus 105 for him to throw an interception. That seems like pretty easy money right there. So I would take, that's probably one of my favorite props in this game.
Yeah, it's fine. I think we're all similar in the sense that we don't love taking these large favorites at margin. But the thing is like the team that's the underdog's got to give us something to cling on to make us make that pick. And in this scenario, I've got nothing for the Giants. It's what have you seen from the Giants offensively that suggests they could keep up with Miami, let alone stay within 10 points of Miami? I think this is the Dolphins minus 9.5. I'm not gonna lie, I'd even be tempted to take the Dolphins minus 12.5, which is what's on DraftKings as well. I have seen nothing from the Giants that suggests that they're going to be capable of putting up the amount of points to keep themselves within the point spread that I think Miami's going to be at by the end of this game. Again, Miami's put up 70 against the team. Sorry, Bryson. But it's
That was rough.
but that's the thing. It's there's nothing you've seen from the Giants that suggests they're going to be able to keep up with the Dolphins. So with that in mind, yeah, I take the Dolphins minus 9.5, and even better, the Dolphins are at home. So get ready for all the track meet stuff to happen.
Yeah. To go through the full injury report, the Giants are missing all three of those starting offensive linemen that Bryson mentioned. They also have Saquon Barkley, Daniel Bellinger, and Micah McFadden, all questionable. Dolphins are missing Robert Jones, offensive lineman, and Nick Needham. And then they have Connor Williams, Lester Cotton, and Jalen Phillips as questionable. The Dolphins, they can be stopped, right? Because their defense is where they are a little bit weak. And so teams can score on them. And that's what we saw last week. We saw the Bills have a great game offensively, and we've seen other games have good games offensively. I mean, even week one, even though it seems a long time ago, the Chargers had an explosive day offensively. So, that's why, getting some of these crazy high scores on both sides of the ball. But there's been nothing from the Giants that suggests that they can take advantage of that, So I think at this point, the Dolphins are going to be, they were feeling themselves a little bit. They maybe got a little bit high on their own supply going in after that big win over the Broncos and got beat by the Bills up in Buffalo. And I feel like this is like them evening out and knowing what they can do against a bad team. Now, they need to make sure that they don't overlook the Giants, because anytime you do overlook an opponent, they can come back and get you in the NFL. So they need to be focused, but there's just too much on that offense right now. I just don't think that the Giants can keep up. It's something to monitor, the offensive health of the Dolphins on the line, but if Tua can keep getting the ball out quickly, then it's not going to matter. If he's going to keep getting ball to those guys in space, then they're going to do all the work for him. So going forward, we'll see in this particular game. I don't think it's going to present itself as an issue. So I'm going to take the Dolphins at minus 9.5 here as well. All right. Saints at Patriots. This is this is a game where I don't, aside from the fans of the teams, I'm just not sure who's feeling good about either of these right now. Um, we've had injuries, we've had down performances. The Saints certainly have more to be positive about right now, but they're not trending in the best direction. And the Patriots at this point, it's just pretty rough. Um, the Saints are going to be missing tight end Jawan Johnson and tackle Landon Young and safety Lonnie Johnson, with quarterback Derek Carr, guard Andrus Peat, offensive lineman James Hurst, and corner Paulson Adebo all questionable. Patriots are missing Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez, which is rough for two best defensive players. And then maybe that's a stretch, but two of their best defensive players. Then questionable, a host of guys, including Ramondre Stevenson, Trent Brown, Riley Reif, Cole Strange, Christian Barmore, Trey Flowers, Devon Godshaw, Jonathan Jones, Sean Wade, and defensive back Cody Davis. So a lot of guys questionable there. We could see any and all of them potentially suit up, but that's a lot of linemen too for them. So, Bryson, what do you think about this game?
I am not looking forward to this game. I don't think it's going to be a particularly fun game to watch. You mentioned earlier, Kyle, even with the low total of the Texans-Falcons game at 41.5, you like the under in that one. I like the under in this one, even if it's at 39.5. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. Neither team has anything really going for them offensively. They both have very good defenses. They're both very, very good on that front. I'm going to take the Saints to cover here, largely because of injuries for the Patriots. You mentioned it. They're out Christian Gonzalez and Matthew Judon. That's their best pass rusher and probably their best corner this season in a secondary that was already pretty decimated with injuries. No Jack Jones, no Marcus Jones. So like their secondary is already pretty injured for the Patriots, and now they're missing their rookie corner who's playing so well for them. So I think you're going to see the Saints finally get something going offensively just because of that. And for the Patriots, they just have no juice to them offensively. There's so much going wrong there. They don't even like Mac Jones, who is kind of forced to be their starter because they don't really have a better option. Like, as much as Bill Belichick wants to bench Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi is not exactly a better option. And I think you're going to see the Saints secondary is ridiculously good. They lead the league in passes defended with 29, so there's going to be tight windows everywhere. You're going to see Mac Jones force the ball into those tight windows probably one too many times. They are fourth in the NFL in interceptions, so I like a Mac Jones interception prop in this game. I think they're going to put too much pressure on Mac Jones to have to win them the game. And with the lack of overall juice as his weapons, and with Ramondre Stevenson questionable with an injury, that means they're probably going to rely on Zeke, which probably at this point in his career, not exactly ideal for an offense to need Zeke to be the lead back. So I don't know. Like you said, Max, there's just neither team's fan bases should feel too overly confident in this one, but I like the Saints to cover in this game. And then my favorite props for this one, I would take Alvin Kamara's receiving props, 28.5 receiving yards, and where is it? 4.5 receptions. He had 13 receptions in his first game back, and he had over 30 receiving yards. So I would take the over on all of Alvin Kamara's receiving props in this game and the Saints to cover.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough game because I want to take the Saints, but then again, this is kind of I've been going through this and looking at the numbers because this is usually a spot where Belichick historically is great. In terms of just overall games under 3-point spread, he's 64% against the spread. He's also 42, 14-1 against the spread. As anything other than a 7.5 plus point favorite. So again, like he's really good in these spots. And then what was the other funny one? Oh yeah, against the spread after a loss of over 21 points, Belichick is 12-1 against the spread. So again, this is a spot where the Patriots are going to usually bounce back. Again, that was with a different quarterback. I still think Belichick's gonna still has something left in terms of the betting world. So I'm gonna take the Patriots -1.5 here. Um, you list out all the reasons why you should go with the Saints, and I don't disagree with that. But again, this could end up just coming down to straight up coaching. Again, it's a 1-point spread. It's swung. It's swung in the direction of the Saints, I believe, in most sports books right now. So again, you're telling me now that a Dennis Allen coach team is going to be a road favorite at Foxborough? I need to see it before I actually believe it. So I'll take the Patriots -1.5 just for the pure sense of this is historically been Belichick's spot to bounce back and get results. So I'll ride with that and see if that'll make me happy on a Sunday.
Yeah, I don't love this because I'm just nervous about Derek Carr's shoulder. I just think Belichick is so good at honing in on where your weakness is, and his right throwing shoulder. I never like that for a quarterback, and I think there's a reason that we saw Kamara get targeted 13 times, right? Because you don't have to push the ball down the field as much. And with Belichick knowing that and honing in on it, it's going to make it really hard for that to generate offense. 13 receptions sounds great in fantasy points, but if you have 13 receptions for 19 yards, you know what I mean? How effective is that real world? Which isn't what happened last week, but I could see that possibly happening this week. Patriots are so banged up and they're just not feeling good. We might get some, legitimate boos in New England for this game. Yeah, I'm kind of straddling the line here. I guess I'll go Saints just because I'm getting points there, but at 1.5, it's not even a lot of points. I'm just gonna go with them because they just have a little bit more going on offensively. They just have some other weapons that they could lean on that. Any one of those guys could have a big game. Chris Olave could have a nice game. Michael Thomas could have a nice game. They've got enough there that I guess I'll go in that direction. I don't like how banged up the Patriots O-line is either. So, all right. I will commit. Saints +1.5. Okay. Ravens at Steelers. So we've got AFC North matchup. Ravens are 3-1. Steelers are 2-2 right now, and they have been anything but consistent. For the Ravens, they are missing Odafe Owe and Daryl Worley. Morgan Moses is doubtful. Questionable, running back Justice Hill, running back Keaton Mitchell, Odell Beckham Jr., and corner Marlon Humphrey. Steelers are missing Pat Freiermuth, OT Dan Moore, so it looks like the rookie tackle is finally going to play, and then James Daniels, who's the guard, DeMarvin Leal, concussion, and Presley Harvin. That's the punter. And Alex Highsmith is questionable. I mean, this is tough. The Ravens are looking like the better team for sure right now. They're looking like the best team in the AFC North, no doubt about it. We are in Pittsburgh, so you always have to take that into account. But missing multiple starting offensive linemen for an offensive line that hasn't been great, I don't love that. Bryson, what you think?
Yeah, I'm with you there. And you mentioned a missing offensive lineman on a line that's already not great. PFF has them ranked as the 29th ranked offensive line. So that's just with it going up against the Ravens team that is tied for, I believe, the second most sacks in the NFL. So that's not a good look going into this one for the Pittsburgh offense. You mentioned with the last game, Max, you could hear legitimate boos for the offense for the Patriots. You could hear the same thing for the Steelers. I mean, they had a chant going asking the crowd was asking to fire Matt Canada. I think you're going to see a pretty similar situation happening here. There's so much going right for the Ravens. They have a legit top 10 defense in every category, top 5 defense in a lot of them, specifically against the pass. I mentioned with the Saints how good that secondary is. The Ravens secondary playing at a similarly high level. They're second in passes defended, and then they're tied for 4th in interceptions with 4 so far this year. So with an offense for the Steelers that has nothing really going for them right now, Kenny Pickett is scheduled to play, but that knee is banged up, so you're not going to see the scrambling Kenny Pickett where, at Kenny's best, he's a guy who's outside the pocket making plays there. You're not going to see the same success in this game with the amount of pressures the Ravens can get to him with a bad offensive line. Lamar's playing at such a high level. He's playing really, really well right now. He leads the team in rushing yards, which is insane. He doesn't have to do a ton in the passing game because the defense just suffocates the other team so much that they can really lean on the run game to really finish the team out. So Lamar hasn't been asked to do a lot in the passing game, but the run game is working really well for them. So there's just so much more going right for the Ravens heading into this one that in the Pittsburgh defense, I've been saying all year that I like that defense. It's not playing very well. They are bottom 5 in a lot of defensive categories. And it's other than TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith in that one game against the Browns, it hasn't been a very good defense so far this season. So I'm not impressed there. There's more pointing to picking the Ravens for me in this one. So I'm going to have them cover the spread. It is a divisional matchup, which especially in this division, they tend to be closer games, but I have pretty high confidence that the Ravens can cover a 4.5 point spread against this Pittsburgh team. And then I would take Lamar's over in rushing yards. He is 47.5. Like I said, he leads the team in rushing yards. So I would take his over in that one. And then that's pretty much my only real prop I love in this game.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting with this game because again, I'm very high on the Ravens. I was very high on them to begin this season. I think the fact that Lamar's back, he's paid, and he's going to be engaged has made this team very, very viable, especially in the regular season. The funny thing about this is I am leaning towards the Steelers because once again we have another coach that has proven in these spots he gets his team to respond. And also, this is one of the strangest NFL rivalries. If I were to tell you, since 2005, the underdogs in this rivalry, when the line is 3 or higher, are 18-2 against the spread. That alone should just get you thinking, boy, maybe the Steelers are the play here. But I don't disagree with the mindset of there's nothing going on well with the Steelers offense that suggests they could keep this within 5 points. That said, I do think the Steelers end up having the game plan correct to keep this low. Obviously, Vegas thinks they're going to keep this game's going to be low. It's at 38, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, I think the Steelers, albeit their flaws offensively, the defense is so good that I think they're going to have a game plan for Lamar Jackson already ready to execute. And the thing is, if Lamar's going to be running, if Lamar's their top threat, then that kind of simplifies everything for the Steelers and where they need to target. I think they will be able to get pressure on Lamar if they do decide to have him throw. I would imagine the Baltimore would try to move him around, but I do like the Steelers defense enough to where, despite the fact that I know their offensive flaws, I will go with the Steelers plus 4.5 here. I just think that it's just one of those philosophies that was like, good coach. This rivalry has always led itself to close games. I would not be shocked if this is a 3-point game and the Ravens win, or maybe even the Steelers find some way to squeak out a victory here. But I'll go with the Steelers plus 4.5 here.
I'm going to take the Ravens. I just... when you look at the Pittsburgh defense that you were talking about, Bryson, one of the things that can happen, and we've seen this happen a lot, where you have a great defense and they're just consistently held back by a poor offense. They get tired, they're on the field too much. They have to, they're out there, then they have to immediately turn around and get back out there because of a turnover or because of a 3 and out. And then sometimes more than that, it's not just that they're tired; they become unmotivated, And it with a guy like Tomlin, you would think the guys are going to be motivated most of the time, but they're dealing with multiple years of Matt Canada at this point, and I don't even think that Kenny Pickett is the problem. I just think if you defensively have lost faith in the entire system offensively, not just a player, then it's just like putting in a backup quarterback not going to do anything, right? So
Yeah.
it's not even like I can trust that, that hypothetical pop you get from putting in the backup, because sometimes that will happen. But I think the players have got to be, disappointed. And I think that their defense is incomplete, and that's been hidden a little bit by the star power that they do have. But yeah, I think that the Ravens are way too well coached on defense to let really anything happen in this game. So I'm pretty comfortable taking the Ravens at -4.5, even though it's a divisional game in the Steelers' house. All right. We have the Eagles at Rams. So this is an interesting game. The Eagles are going to be missing Cam Jurgens, Fletcher Cox, and Marlon Tuipulotu, and then Sidney Brown as well, with Britton Covey questionable with concussion. Rams are missing Joe Noteboom. Doubtful is Deshaun Johnson, and questionable Alaric Johnson. So Eagles are a 4-0 team that is mostly played well, but has not looked invincible. They have not looked as good as they have last year. The Rams look like a team that is definitely beatable, but can hang with anybody because of that offense, because of how well Matthew Stafford is playing. So 4.5 point spread here is interesting. What do you think, Bryson?
I'm going to take the Eagles here, and part of that is I'm going against the trend a little bit because the Rams are undefeated against the spread. They are 3-0-1 against the spread right now, so it's a little risky taking a team that's undefeated against the spread in this one. But I love the fact that the Eagles are finding ways to win without playing their best football. They're playing, I would say, B-level football for them, and they're still winning these games. I think eventually you're going to see something happen with this team. You're going to see the Eagles you saw last year where they were just dominating teams every other week. And I think that starts this week with a couple of reasons. One, the Rams offensive line is ranked 24th by PFF. So it's just a pretty mediocre to below average offensive line. And Noteboom is out. So their starting left tackle is out with that offensive line. So you're going to see an Eagles team who is fourth in the NFL in pressure rate percentage at 29.3%, going up against a pretty poor offensive line with a backup left tackle. And they are second, the Eagles defense is, against the run. They've given up the second least amount of rushing yards in the NFL. So against a Rams team that already doesn't run the ball great, the Eagles are going to have a chance to really stop that and then put the game in Matthew Stafford's hands. And they're going to find ways to tee off on Stafford in this game. Obviously Stafford's not very mobile, so he's just going to kind of stand in that pocket. And with how many pressures this Eagles team can get on Stafford, they're going to get to him eventually, and that's when Stafford's going to make mistakes. He's going to fumble. He's going to maybe throw an interception in this game. This Eagles defense, I think, turns things around a little bit in this one. I am very curious to see how Cooper Kupp looks if he's going to be back in this game, which it sounds like he's going to be back for this week. Him and Puka Nacua are going to be a fascinating wide receiver duo. It's going to be interesting to see who Stafford picks as his favorite because he loves throwing to Puka right now. But when Cooper Kupp's out there, he's going to feed Kupp as often as he can. I think the Eagles secondary could be in a little bit of danger there. But ultimately, I think you're going to see that defense for the Eagles really rise up in this game. I think you're going to see the offense for the Eagles really lean on that run game. This is a below average run defense for the Rams. They're pretty good against the pass, but it's a below average run defense. You're going to see them really lean on Hurts and Swift to get the run game going, which will open up the rest of that offense. So I don't love it because the Eagles, like I said, are not playing their best football, and the Rams are undefeated against the spread. But I just think that the Eagles are the far better team in this matchup, and I think they're going to show it in this one. So I'm going to take the Eagles to cover the 4.5 points.
Yeah. taking the Eagles has not been my thing this year. So, and here I am again thinking I am going to take them. So, yeah, I'll take the Eagles -4.5 here. I do like the Rams, but the problem is all the offensive line issues for the Rams are going to show up against the Eagles. It's one thing when you have those issues against the Colts, and the Colts are more sporadic when it comes to consistent pressure. Eagles are going to bring the consistent pressure almost every down whenever Stafford decides to stand back in the pocket. We saw it on Monday night when the Bengals played the Rams. Stafford's constantly under siege. I think the Eagles have a much better defense than the Bengals. So I could totally see that being another nightmare scenario for Stafford. I am like desperately hoping that Cooper Kupp's player props come out, because I think it'll be Kupp that gets. I think it immediately goes to Kupp, and especially against this Eagles team, Kupp also gets all those short passes and all those quick routes. So I immediately am looking for the receptions as soon as they become available. But ultimately, in terms of the game inside, I'll go with the Eagles -4.5. Don't really love it because I think the Eagles are kind of just coasting through the early part of the season, not wanting to go all out. They're still getting the results because that's how talented they are. I think they'll kick it up at some point. I don't know if it'll be this game, but I think at some point they'll kick it into gear. But I'll take them 4.5 here, even though I don't necessarily love doing it.
I'm going to take the Rams here, even though I do think that it's going to be covering the spread and a loss. I think the Eagles will find a way to win the game and go 5-0. I think that I'm going to trust the Rams offense here. I'm just going to trust them to get the points. I think, what I envision most likely happening is a slightly better game from the Eagles overall throughout the entirety of the game. They're going to have a lead. Towards the end of the game, they're going to start running the ball because it's what they're good at. The Rams are going to sell out to stop the run, and then at the last minute, Stafford is going to close ground and basically get this score close. Then they'll have a chance to either kick an onside kick, or they might even get the ball back, and then they'll have to drive down the field for another score to end up winning the game. And I think the Eagles will be able to hold them off. And that's sort of the the game story that I have in my mind. And to me, that's less than 4.5 point victory here. So I'm going to take the Rams to cover, but I do think the Eagles will still ultimately win the game. All right. Next up, we're getting close. We have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Arizona Cardinals. I guarantee you that 3.5 would not be the spread at the beginning of the year. If they played in week 1, spread would be significantly larger. Mm-hmm. All right. The Bengals are missing Akeem Davis-Gaither, and then T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson, Chidobe Awuzie, and Cam Taylor-Britt are all questionable. Cardinals are missing Jonathan Ledbetter and corner Garrett Williams. Questionable, they have Keontae Ingram, Dennis Daly, Will Hernandez, and Josh Woods. So, I don't even know what to tell you. The Cardinals are not good, but they've hung in there a little bit. The Bengals, I don't even want to say they're not good, because they should be good. But right now, they're not really good. That's my analysis for you, Brison.
Yeah, this game fascinates me because, like you said, I don't think anyone in a million years would have picked it as a 3.5 point spread without like a Joe Burrow being out in this game heading into the season. But I'm taking the Cardinals to cover here. I think it could be in a loss. I think the Bengals could find a way to squeak out a win. But the Cardinals are 3-1 so far this season against the spread, and they're hanging in there with some of the league's best teams. They beat the Cowboys. They were hanging in there for a while with the 49ers. Like, this Cardinals team is competing. They're making sure to not get blown out in games, and this Bengals team is playing so poorly, especially on offense. That offense is really struggling right now. They can't get a run game going. Joe Burrow looks flustered every time he gets the ball right now. I think that calf injury, I said it to someone early in the week. I think the calf injury at this point for Joe Burrow is more of a mental problem than an actual physical problem, because Joe Burrow is not Lamar Jackson running for 50 plus yards every game. Joe Burrow is a good athlete, but he's more of a pocket guy. So I don't think the calf is hindering his ability to physically play the game. But I think he's just worried about scrambling and about getting hit too early. And I think he's trying to get the ball out so quickly. He's not really letting the routes develop. The last game against the Titans, I watched that game and it just looked like he threw the ball way too soon so often. Like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase were just not ready for the football, and the ball is already well past them. That happened a lot in last week. So I think it's a mental problem for Joe Burrow that he has to hurdle. And I think you could see him play better this week. The one thing the Cardinals defense has really going for them that could be an issue for the Bengals passing game is they are tied for 5th in the NFL, I believe, or they're tied for 4th in the NFL in passes defended. So they have tight windows on that secondary. They're not open all the time. So I think you're going to see Joe Burrow have to fit some balls in tight windows this week. And it could come down to a game-winning field goal for the Bengals to win this game. But the Cardinals, they're competing. They're playing really well. Joshua Dobbs is playing at a very high level to start the season. They can run the football really well. The Bengals are going to have to stop that run game with James Conner. They're going to want to slow down this Cardinals offense, but I see no reason to pick the Bengals right now in any favorite spot, so I'm going to take the Cardinals to cover here.
Yeah, I think my thoughts of the Cardinals being the number one pick holder might not be the greatest idea, because they are very, very feisty is the best way I can put it. They're putting they're giving every team a fight. Now it's just whether or not they decide to win the game or not that kind of it comes down to. I'll go with the Cardinals plus 3.5 here, kind of for a lot of the reasons Bryson said. There's really nothing that the Bengals suggest or like have done this season that make me feel comfortable taking them as a road favorite. I don't think they have. I haven't been really a fan of Zach Taylor since he became the head coach of the Bengals. But I just think the Bengals just seem like they're really, really lost right now. I'm kind of disagreeing with Bryson. I think the calf injury is a thing for Burrow in terms of I think it's actually still bothering him. He's actually been very open. I think he's said on a couple occasions that he's still dealing with it, trying to maintain it as he's playing. So I think there's legitimate concern. And so I'm kind of wondering how far this season goes before they just have to just say, you know what, this is a lost season. We can't keep on further risking his calf if it's not going to get better and we're not getting results. But with this game said, I just don't know anything that the Bengals are going to do, especially if Burrow's just going to be throwing a lot of throws early with the mindset of he might get hit or someone's going to come close to hitting him. So I'll take the Cardinals plus 3.5. Again, I think the Cardinals aren't going to win this game, which gives me pause to take it. But again, there's nothing I've seen from the Bengals that makes me confident taking them 3.5. So Cardinals plus 3.5.
I'm going to take the Bengals here just because I just can't give out all hope on them at this point. Like if I'm going to say that the Cardinals are going to cover a 3.5 point spread, this is going to be a really, really close game, which basically means that the Cardinals have every opportunity to win it. I just can't do it yet. Just one more week. If the Bengals can't do it against the Arizona Cardinals right now, I will buy into them just not being good. You know, and maybe this is just because of my preseason assumptions. I picked Joe Burrow to be the MVP, I definitely thought they were going to win the division. And so this is just it's a far cry from what I expected. We've seen him make in-season adjustments before around this time last year, play a very different style of football. At this point, I know technically they're favored at -3.5, but he might just do better with underdog vibes if everybody starts to doubt them. I really don't know, but it would be crazy to see a fall off this dramatic for a player who's at his age. So to me, it can't be a consistent decline, right? It's got to turn around at some point. Is it partway through the year? Is it now? Is it next year? It's got to be one of those. So I don't know. I'm not out on the Bengals just quite yet. I'm going to give them a little bit more time to turn things around. So I'm going to take them to cover -3.5 here. All right. The New York Jets are going to visit the Denver Broncos in a game where, this might be the most publicized game of the entire week. Cowboys, 49ers, primetime, sure. But in a non-primetime game, people are going to be talking about this for the rest of the weekend, all day. I mean, people are going to be tweeting about it. Jets are they are underdogs by 2.5 in this game. In Denver, they are missing Brandon Eccles and DJ Reed, so 2 corners. Billy Turner, Carter Warren, Sam Aguavone, and Jarek Bernard Converse are all questionable, but those are all backup players. Broncos are missing Baron Browning, and then Javonte Williams, Lloyd Cushenberry, and Mike Purcell are all questionable. So in this game, you've got the Jets, who went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs last week, and then you've got the Broncos, who managed to get their first win. And then you've got all of the other storylines of, Hackett being there last year, the stuff that Sean Payton has said about both him and then the Jets in the offseason, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of bulletin board material for this game. Bryson, how are you feeling about this matchup?
Before I get into my pick, I just want to point out I saw this excellent post that Bronco pages are trying to get Bronco fans to get into for this game is to start counting the clock for the Jets offense, because it was very well publicized last year that the offense for the Broncos really struggled to get a playoff in time. There were home games where home fans had to count down the clock for the Broncos offense because they were just delay of games were a constant problem for the Broncos. So I think it'd be very funny if the Bronco fans could get the same thing going for the Jets if it's the same issue. But for the actual game, I truly am not very confident picking either of these games. You mentioned that the Jets just went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, but it's not too far off from when the Jets were getting booed by their own fans at home because Zach Wilson and the offense wasn't getting anything going against other teams. So I'm not – and then with the Broncos, the offense for the Broncos has been actually very, very good this season. They're putting up numbers. The passing game for the Broncos is very, very consistent. Russell Wilson's playing at a very high level right now. The run game is so-so. Javonte Williams is still working his way back from that injury. Last week it was Jaleel McLaughlin, the undrafted rookie, who is the best running back on the team. I think you're going to see a lot more carries out of him this week. We've got a really good offense for the Broncos and then a terrible defense for the Broncos. This Broncos defense is atrocious. They did turn things around in the second half against the Bears, and Vance Joseph kind of mentioned it. He changed his scheme up in the second half. They went to more man coverage with 5-man rush, which, shocker, you have one of the best man coverage corners in the NFL. You let him play man coverage, and it worked. Pat Surtain looked much better in the second half than he has all season. So I'm not saying they turned a corner, but they are getting reinforcements on defense. Justin Simmons should be back. Josie Jewell is back. That's your starting safety and your starting middle linebacker. Frank Clark is coming back this week, so that's a rotational pass rusher for this team. I'm going to take the Broncos to cover. I'm not overly confident in it, but I am not confident that Zach Wilson all of a sudden turned a corner and he's going to be a consistently good starting quarterback for this team. I think that with the Broncos defense, there's really only 2 players on that Jets offense I'm really afraid of, and that's Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. After those 2, there's not really much that scares me for that Jets offense. And if you can pressure Zach Wilson, which the Jets don't have a very good offensive line, the Broncos pass rush started to get better against the last couple of weeks. So I think if you can pressure Zach Wilson and force him to make off script plays and speed up the clock on him a little bit, that could play huge into the Broncos defense playing at a better rate this week. But ultimately, I think it's going to be the Broncos offense is playing at a high level. It's going to be a situation where it's going to be close going into the fourth quarter. And I think the Broncos offense can get it done based on what I've seen so far this year. The Jets defense is talented, but you can run the football on them. They are 28th in the NFL in rushing defense. The secondary is good. They are 16th in the NFL in passing defense, and they're missing 2 corners. DJ Reed, obviously one of the better ones in football. So I'm not confident picking either of them, but I'm going to take the Broncos at home with that home crowd. They're going to really, I think, be loud while the Jets are on offense. So I think I'm not confident in it, but I'm going to take the Broncos to cover here.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar spot here. At first, when I go through these first one, when I do like a quick glance, just instant thoughts and making picks, I have the Broncos minus 2.5, and I think I'm gonna stay there. The only thing that gives me pause is the idea of the Jets no longer like actually pulling the no more pitch count with Breece Hall. I did see a note where it's now Breece Hall, and that gets Dalvin Cook off the field for them, which I think should change the dynamic of the Jets offense much more. That being said, it's more of I gotta see it to believe it. I liked what Zach Wilson did during the Chief game all the way up until the final drive of the game. So I definitely see why the spread is what it is. But I'm gonna need to see it again if I'm gonna back it. I don't blame anybody. I don't blame most people. I think most people on ESPN right now are picking the Jets right now at 68% just overall across the site. So I see why people are going with it. I'm just not ready to jump onto that bandwagon yet. I think one game can be an anomaly. If he does better again and then gets the result, then I'll start to change my thought process of how I think the Jets season will go. But until then, I'll go with the Broncos minus 2.5 here.
Yeah, I think even if you don't buy into Zach Wilson, I still think this is a tough matchup for the Broncos because their defense is not good. And the Jets, their offense is turning a corner regardless of what you think of him for a few reasons. Their offensive line hasn't been good, but with the injury to Dwayne Brown, they've now shifted Mekhi Becton over to left tackle. They've shifted Elijah Vera Tucker back to right tackle, and their second round pick, Joe Tippmann, is now playing guard. And the play across their offensive line has improved. Their worst O-lineman right now is Connor McGovern, their center, which is the easiest place to have a lesser player because you just don't get those double teams. And the Broncos pass rush just hasn't been that good to begin with. But they played quite well against the Chiefs last week, which is one of the reasons that Zach Wilson played better. And this is kind of a moving in the right direction after a good game against some improvement after that initial shift against the Patriots, and then a substantial improvement against the Chiefs. So it looks like they've kind of found their way on the O-line. And then again, like you said, Kyle, Breece Hall getting the ball. He's going to get the ball in the run game. He's going to get it in the passing game. And so I trust that to work. And honestly, I do think Zach Wilson turned a bit of a corner. Not saying he's not going to have bad games against good defenses, but I think if he's got an opportunity to really carry some momentum, this would be it. And then defensively, No, the Broncos are putting up stats, but they haven't really played a defense like the Jets defense yet. They played the Raiders, they played the Dolphins, they played the Bears, all are who are outright bad defensively. And then the Commanders, they do have some pass rushers, but they're still trying to figure things out. They're making all kinds of shifts in the secondary and substitutions because they haven't quite figured out exactly what works for them yet. So I don't think that the Broncos have played a team with a defense like the Jets. So I don't think that the matchup is favorable. So we'll see. I'm going to take the Jets at +2.5 because I'm definitely going to take the points in that case. I also think the Jets are going to be coming with heat because of all the outside noise. And I mean, the Jets haven't had problems getting plays off in time for the play clock this year. So I think that's just gonna piss off the Jets. Like, I don't think that you know what I mean. It's gonna be something that they're gonna be like. It's not gonna be like booze at your home stadium because it's not a thing for them. So I'll take them at 2.5. But here I am picking the Jets again. Who knows why I do that? All right. Final non-primetime game, we have the Kansas City Chiefs -5.5 going to visit the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the one thing that we do know about the Vikings is that they can score. And the one thing that we know about the Chiefs is that they do win. So the Chiefs winning and the Vikings scoring are pretty much the two things we can count on for this game. The Chiefs are pretty light on the injury report. They have Wanya Morris, Matt Dickerson, and Nick Bolton all questionable. Vikings have Nick Mullins, Brian Asamoah, Marcus Davenport, and Lewis Seen as all questionable. And that's it. So how do you see this game going down, Brison?
I have the Chiefs covering the 5.5 point spread, largely because I think that last week was the worst this Chiefs offense is going to play all year. Like, that Jets defense made life really difficult on Patrick Mahomes. This is not the same defense for the Vikings. They are not nearly as talented on that side of the ball. I think you're going to see the Chiefs really get the offense going in this one. Specifically, I think they're going to keep going at it with Isaiah Pacheco in the run game. I think that's a really nice change of pace for this Chiefs offense, getting a run game going early and then just letting Mahomes be Mahomes late in games. This Vikings offense can really put up points. I find it interesting that it's 5.5 on ESPN, but on other books, it's all the way down to 3.5. So an interesting trend there that maybe they're seeing something that we're not with the Vikings in this game. But ultimately, like you said, Max, the Chiefs just win games. This defense for the Chiefs is playing at a high level. I know for a fact Justin Jefferson's going to get his because that's just how this season's gone so far. Is Justin Jefferson in the passing game for the Vikings is playing at a high level. But other than that, the Vikings can't run the football. The defense is really struggling to keep teams. They're giving up 23.8 points a game, which is 19th in the NFL. The Chiefs are giving up 15 points per game. So the defense really heavily favors the Chiefs in this one. The passing game, I'm going to trust Mahomes over Kirk Cousins 10 times out of 10. And even though the Chiefs aren't playing their best football right now, they're kind of like the Eagles. They're playing like B-level football and still winning football games. I'm going to take the Chiefs to cover the 5.5 points in this one.
Yeah, this kind of will be the same thought process when we get to the Sunday Night Football game. But I'll take the Chiefs -5.5 here. It's just I'm not really in on anything that the Vikings did. Obviously, them getting off the winless record, beating the Panthers. That's nothing to write home about. Now, them beating the Chiefs would be something, but I don't believe that's going to happen. I think the Chiefs are doing exactly what I thought they would do during once the season got going. Just start getting through results, start putting on performances, racking up the wins, and getting themselves prepared for a postseason run. I like the Isaiah Pacheco stuff because the Vikings defense is gettable. However you want however you want to attack it, through the air, on the ground. I don't really see much of an issue for the Chiefs. I could see the Chiefs putting up 30 plus points here. And so with that in mind, I also think that the Vikings are likely going to get their own as well. Their offense is just too good for that. So I mean, 52 being the over under is a lot, but I wouldn't be stunned if the Chiefs get to like 35 and then the Vikings are around 21. So I definitely wouldn't be angry if anybody said let's take the over in this game. And then yeah, Pacheco, all these running backs are getting touches. So I mean, with the Chiefs, you might as well just take a flyer on all of their props. So I'll take the Chiefs minus 5.5 here.
I'm going to take the Chiefs minus 5.5 as well. I think, I suspect that people look at the Jets game last week and think, okay, well, we know that the Vikings offense is probably better than the Jets offense, right? That wouldn't be some kind of mystery. And, the Chiefs haven't had the best of luck with their receivers consistently getting open. But I think that, that's a little bit of an oversimplification of it. And I do think that's kind of what's pushing these lines here and the thought process surrounding these teams. I think people don't realize that how good the Jets defense is when they feel like, we just talked about it with the Steelers. Great defenses still don't sometimes play great when their offense just lets them down over and over again. When the offense shows some life, the Jets defense is incredibly good. And I don't think that's a problem for the Chiefs in this game, because the Vikings defense is not even pretty good at all. So they are going to put up a lot of points. I think Mahomes is going to want to come out and play hard after a little bit of just a temporary wake-up call there. And I do think the Vikings will be able to score, but the Chiefs' defense is actually good. I mean, if you go back and watch the Sunday night game, they were not playing bad. Zach Wilson was throwing strikes, and he was basically targeting every man coverage opportunity where a defensive player got into trail position. He was just throwing a dime over their shoulder when they couldn't see the ball coming and couldn't react. And so it's like, that's really high level play. And I don't know if it'll last for the Jets, but at least in the Vikings game, that's not necessarily how Cousins is playing either. So he's hitting open guys, but it's more about his players getting open, right, than that kind of mentality. So I think that the Vikings will have the opportunity to put up points. I do think the Chiefs' defense is better than people might think just looking at the box score against the Jets. But I do think that the Chiefs are going to come out and win this game handily. So I'm going to take them to cover 5.5. And I'm pretty confident about that, especially after a primetime game where it was down to the line. All right. Sunday night football. We have the Dallas Cowboys going into San Francisco against the 49ers. 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. This is a game that a lot of people have been waiting for a couple of weeks since both teams have been starting on a hot streak. Taking a look at the injury report, we have the Cowboys missing Peyton Hendershot and Damone Clark is questionable. 49ers are missing Elijah Mitchell and John Feliciano is questionable. So both pretty light. All the stars are there for this game. And so we're going to get to see these two teams full strength going at it. Bryson, what do you think? Who's coming out on top?
Yeah, these are two very evenly matched teams, almost any way you look at it. I mean, against the spread, they're both 3-1. They both have really, really, really good defenses. The offenses can move the ball and score points pretty quickly as well. I'm going to take San Francisco in large part because I like the coaching matchup a lot more for San Francisco, obviously with Kyle Shanahan over Mike McCarthy. I think Brock Purdy I trust more than Dak Prescott at this point. I think people still aren't giving Brock Purdy enough credit. They're still saying things like, oh, it's all the talent around him, it's the coaching, all that kind of stuff. San Francisco's had plenty of other quarterbacks come through the system and not look this good. Brock Purdy just might be a very good quarterback for this team, runs the offense perfectly, and this is by far easily the best team Dallas has played all year. I mean, the Dallas has had the fortune of playing the Giants, the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Patriots, all offenses pretty abysmal. The Cardinals actually beat the Cowboys because what they did was they got up early and then they forced the offense to have to win the game for Dallas. I think you can see a similar situation with this one. San Francisco is going to get up early. They're going to force Dallas with Dak Prescott to have to beat that defense, and I don't think Dak can. This defense for the Niners is legit. They're going to make life difficult on Dak all game. Not that the Cowboys defense is going to do the same, but you look at the Niners, they have so many weapons. I mean, Christian McCaffrey alone could carry this Niners offense, but then you got George Kittle, you've got Debo, you've got Brandon Ayuk, you've got the master play caller with Kyle Shanahan. So at home, a lot of things going right for the Niners right now. I think they're going to make life very difficult on the Cowboys all night. So I'm going to take the Cowboys to cover 3.5 points here.
You mean?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you?
Niners
yeah, I was
cover.
like,
sorry, the Niners to cover 3.5.
Yeah, I was.
My bad.
Did I miss a transition there?
yeah.
No.
No. Bryson's still on here. I'm still trying to figure out if Dallas's offense is good because again, their defense has been carrying the water for them the first 4 games of this season. And if you look at Dallas, they are one of the worst red zone teams in the league right now. Like they're kicking field goals or they're just not scoring flat out because of interceptions in the end zone or all this sorts of stuff. And so now you're telling me that they're likely facing the best team in the league on the road. That's not a scenario I like for the Cowboys. I especially when you have concerns. I have at least concerns if their offense is good. I think Brock Purdy's gonna. I don't think Brock Purdy's gonna do anything erratic. I think you can absolutely win with him. I 100% believe that, especially with Shanahan as the head coach. They are doing a wonderful job highlighting everything he does well while also mitigating and staying away from things that they know that's not his strength. And also having probably the best running back in the league helps a lot as well with Christian McCaffrey. So I think you should just back the 49ers. I understand why anybody would go with the Cowboys, but I think the burden of proof is on the Cowboys side. They have to prove that they're actually at the 49ers level, whereas the 49ers, we haven't seen anything this year that suggests that they aren't as good as we all think they are. So I'll take the 49ers minus 3.5 here, and I don't feel bad about taking that. I feel very confident about taking 49ers minus 3.5 here.
So for me, it's the talent matchup. It's definitely in the 49ers' favor, but it's not so much so that I'm just making a blanket statement that they're better. For me, it's the coaching matchup that makes the difference here. We've seen Mike McCarthy go up against the 49ers multiple times at this point, and I think the 49ers, they have his number, not in the sense that they just know how to beat him, just in the sense that they just do a better job overall when they do match up. I think that the Cowboys are a good offense. I think one of their issues is that they're a little inconsistent and they tend to get high on themselves. After a couple of big wins, they often drop one to a team that you're not expecting. This has been consistent throughout McCarthy's tenure there. And so I do think they're good. To me, that's not really a question. I don't think they're truly great, but I think they're good, and I think they're led by their defense, which is very, very good. So I think that can be a recipe to win, but you've got to bring it every single week. And in this case, even against, even if you bring it against the 49ers, I'm not sure that it will ultimately matter. Now, I don't love 3.5 points because I feel like this could be a very close game. Losing Trevon Diggs is a big loss for the Cowboys. It's a big loss for them. They were still able to smother the Patriots. 49ers is a little bit of a different animal. So I think this game could be close, but Yeah, I'm okay. So I'm going to take the Cowboys here, even though I think the 49ers pull out the win, just because I just feel like this could be another Sunday night game for the ages. I mean, let's think about it this way, right? Even the Jets game last week, what did the final score come down to? 23. So that would
Yeah.
have covered this spread. So, when you have Patrick Mahomes taking a knee at the goal line, that's a big difference in a game like this. And I think that the game could come down to something very similar, a 2 to 3 point win, hard fought, but the 49ers come out on top. So I'm just going to take the Cowboys to cover here because, I'm like I said, I think they're good and I'm not writing them off. I'm just going to try the win to go to the Niners. All right. That's it. Week 5. We've got about 24 hours to sit on this and feel bad about every decision that we've made here until we get to watch the Bills and Jaguars play in London. You can find Brison at Brison Owens 16. Find Kyle at Kyle_Nishida. You can find me at TheMaxDean. You can find Defiant Takes Football at Defiant Takes FB. Go over to defianttakesfootball.com. Check out all of our written content and, of course, all of the live streams and videos that we do here on the YouTube channel. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you all very soon.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.